Long before Detroit Tiger prowled on this plot of land, a Russian bear had lurked in the shadows of the city's bustling theater district. The Russian Bear Inn operated on this spot from 1948 to 1952. But that is the end of our story. The beginning of the story of this legendary restaurant lies far away in Russia during World War I. A Russian named Sergei Jeromsky was taken prisoner by the Germans. While in the POW camp, he and a number of other Russian balalaika players formed the Russian National Balalaika Orchestra. After the war, the orchestra became world famous and toured internationally. Eventually, Jeromsky made his way to New York City and began working at the Russian Bear restaurant, which was run by another Russian émigré, Anton Poznansky, who had been forced to flee Russia after some run-ins with the government. In 1928, Jeromsky and Poznansky moved to Detroit and opened the Russian Bear Inn, which was both a restaurant and a nightclub. It was located at 25 West Columbia, right across from the Fox Theater. The restaurant's musicians were former members of the Russian National Balalaika Orchestra, whom Jeromsky had invited to Detroit. They formed a balalaika quintet which would entertain the Russian Bears guests for years. Their repertoire included favorites like Alyosha Shah, which you are listening to now. The restaurant soon became a Detroit hotspot frequented by Russian refugees, local professionals, tourists, Detroit theatergoers, and even celebrities. Around 1948, the Russian Bear moved to the Century Building at 62 East Columbia, on the corner of Columbia and Witherell, next to the Cinema Theater, the future location of Comerica Park. Sergei Jeromsky eventually bought out Poznansky's share of the restaurant. Poznansky went on to run a number of other popular establishments, including the Hawkins Bar and Grill and the Normandy Bar and Grill. Soon thereafter, Jeromsky collapsed and died at the Russian Bear Inn. His widow, Tamara, took over running the restaurant. The Russian Bear had a passionate, romantic, bohemian mystique which patrons remembered fondly even half a century later. Its walls were hung with paintings of characters from Russian fairy tales, and the restaurant boasted a hand-carved wooden bench decorated with, you guessed it, Russian bears. On this very bench, Igor Jeromsky, Sergei Jeromsky's nephew, and his wife Anna sat at their wedding reception in the Russian Bear in 1952. This was the last big to-do there before the restaurant closed later the same year. After the move, the restaurant's balalaika quintet was replaced by Henry's String Ensemble. The loss of the popular balalaika orchestra, along with the rise of the Cold War, may have contributed to the Russian Bear's demise. The original home of the Russian Bear at 25 West Columbia was ultimately demolished, leaving an empty lot, which is today about where this parking lot is located. The restaurant's second home, the building which would become known as the Gem Theater, was moved 5 blocks east in 1997 to 333 Madison to make way for Comerica Park. Today you can visit the Gem Theater and enjoy dinner and a show while creating your own memories in this beautifully restored building. While you are here, listen for echoes of the Balalaika Quintet and relive the romantic bohemian days of Detroit's own Russian Bear.